All good, rightio. Welcome everyone to the Full District Council meeting of the 30th of July 2025. We've got one speaker for public forum, Mr. Russell, and so before we hear from Mr. Russell, just to remind everyone, the benefit of everyone online is that I know the speakers today have been advised that public forum is not a forum for electioneering. Particularly council chambers is a place for us to do council business, and electioneering isn't part of that. So everyone's been reminded of that, and just ask the speakers to be respectful of standing orders and that advisory that's been gone out to everybody. So with no further ado, Mr. Russell, you've got 5 minutes. Welcome up to the table, and that microphone's not particularly directional, so speak pretty close to it.
Right, yeah. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, everybody. I'm Chris Russell. A lot of you won't know me in person, but I know all of you because I've been watching all of your meetings since I came back to Westport just over 2 years ago. On various occasions over the last 2 years on different topics, I've written, and I've actually copied you all of you, on things that I've written to the council. They might have been Jamie. I can't say I've had responses in the main, but I'm sure that you received them all, which is good. Okay, so I've seen you all around town, or most of you around town, and so what I've put out, I wrote up the submission last night and sent that all to you this morning, so you would have a chance to read it. And if you haven't read it and would like a copy, I've got some copies here for it as well. So unless you want me to, I wasn't intending to go through it, picking up on, Jamie's chairmanship. I'd like to take it as read and happy to answer any questions, unless of course you'd like me to read through the whole thing. Is there anybody, can I just, for my own benefit, can I have a show of hands who actually received that email and has read it? Okay, excellent.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Anyone got any questions, Mr. Russell? Nope, nothing heard. Thank you.
That's great.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, just regarding the access to some of these activities, areas that you want to look at. A rejection is a rejection, obviously, but I'm failing to see at the moment the importance of this pre-election as opposed to post-election.
Okay, that's a fair question. I've got quite a lot of experience in business and senior management and in governance. Okay, to me, if I'm going to be taking on a new role in governance, then I don't want to get into a role before I've satisfied myself of what I'm getting into. Okay, that's not to suggest that that's not to suggest that there's anything wrong. That's just prudent governance is to, ask pretty basic questions about what's going on to satisfy yourself that you're not walking into, a landmine area. And one of them is actually, in fact, health and safety is, one of the most critical. As councillors, I look at council like a company. Okay, whether you guys do or don't, I don't know. I look at council as a company, and I look at you guys as being directors of that company, being responsible for the running of the company, or the governance of the company. Sorry, Simon, you're running it. And, your job is to oversee what's happening, and you need to satisfy yourself that what's actually happening is all good. Okay, it complies with all of the laws, etc., etc. Now, if it doesn't, and you're aware of it, or if it doesn't and you're not aware of it, you have very similar responsibilities to the director of a company. Okay, and I don't know whether any of you have looked at that, but that's one of the things that I've written to you about as councillors, as a citizen. I've written to you all about what your responsibilities are as a councillor, because I was of the view that, you know, you may not be aware of it. I mean, everybody here is here to do a good job, but you haven't necessarily had the backgrounds that I've had, for example, maybe Simon's had, you know, to actually really understand what your responsibilities are when it comes to, excuse my language, shit happening. And if you don't, you know, please, I just implore you to go and read up on it, you know, from a health and safety point of view. You know, I've heard before that when it comes to health and safety, I've heard somebody say, well, you know, that's the chief executive's responsibility. And yes, it is, but it's your responsibility to make sure that the chief executive is actually carrying out his responsibilities. And those laws are changing all the time, and it's a nightmare. You know, just recently,
Just got to the time, so Councillor Howard's got a question as well, and then we'll,
I'll just finish off by saying the chief executive of the Auckland Port Company had a mirage of people handling health and safety, and there was a death. Now, he was the one that got prosecuted and fined and walked out the door because he was found not to have done everything that he should have done in a position where he was so far removed, but still had responsibility.
Councillor Howard.
To answer your question.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I guess my question is a bit along the lines of what's already been raised. Is where do you see that balance between an efficient council for staffing, that they're there to do a job, and we're going to see that's done in a cost efficient way, and part of being, if you should be elected, there's a very extensive 3-month orientation program that's being put forward. Isn't that the best way to address orientation into the council, where all new councillors get to see everything and ask questions together, and also acts as a refresher for current councillors? And plus that is also going through the Local Government Act and what your role as a councillor is. So surely that's more efficient and a better cost efficient to the ratepayer to follow that process. What's your comments?
Okay, Joe, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so I didn't pick up everything you say. If I can recap, you're asking me.
I'll recap. So the question was around the most efficient use of council resources and staff time, and that Councillor Howard's suggesting that the planned induction over a couple of months, once elected people are elected, is a better use of that time than having to organise individual visits and the like for a myriad of candidates.
That's a good question, Joe. Thanks for that. At the end of the day, it comes down to the individual to satisfy him or herself of the responsibilities that they're going to take on. I haven't been elected before, so I don't know what that induction is all about. I've seen the material the council's put out for people who have been thinking about standing, and in my opinion, it's not adequate. So therefore, if it's not adequate, then I'll ask questions. Insofar as visiting the port is concerned, I've now put in a request for a lot of information that, for the sake of half an hour or an hour at the port and on the dredge, a lot of those questions might have been able to be satisfied without me even asking questions. Okay, by having a general chat, but unfortunately, that was not permitted, and when it was arranged, then it got canned.
So final question from me is, in my understanding, I mean, I've seen your legal email because you copied me into it. There's an awful lot on there that could be answered by Simon or port management staff, and I understand that that opportunity has been offered to you to meet with them and answer any questions and go through whatever information you want to go through without necessarily needing to visit the port. So can you confirm that invitation has been extended?
That invitation was extended. Can I answer the question? Can I answer to your comment?
That was the question. So you have had an invitation extended by staff for you to meet with them and go through whatever information you want in relation to the port?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, councillors.
Can I say one thing before I go?
Else?
As far as, you know, when I want to talk to people about a particular area, I want to talk to people who have got the experience and knowledge to talk to me and answer my questions. Like I have a marine background as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I will ask very difficult questions that most probably your dredge master and even harbour master will struggle with. The point of all of this is that the invitation to visit the port should not have been declined in the first place.
We've had your reasons for
And
that,
the
so we're not going back into
interference
that now.
And the interference that
But
came
thank you,
after
Mr.
that
Russell. You've had your
shouldn't have
time.
occurred either.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity.
Okay, there's no further public forum speakers. So we discuss at the end a formal response to your public forum, and you'll get a written response from me after we've deliberated on that at the end of the meeting. Okay, thank you, councillors. Without further ado, I will open the meeting proper at 3:41 and call on any apologies. And I have one to note is Iwi Representative Ned Taufuri. And I just acknowledge Councillor Naylon, Deputy Mayor Basher and Councillor Howard, who are all joining us on Zoom today from various other commitments. Are there any other apologies to add? I don't think there will be with those. So I'll move that Ned Taufuri's apology be accepted. Seconded, Councillor Grafton. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Members' interests. Are there any matters on today's agenda for which members wish to declare a financial or non-financial interest? Okay, I move that there's none to declare. Seconded, Councillor Bartlett. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, minutes. And we have a few sets of minutes there to deal with, so we'll do them one at a time. That council receive and confirm the public minutes from the 25th of June, 2025. Are there any matters of correction in those minutes? Nothing heard on those ones. The council extraordinary meeting, public minutes of the 30th of June, the local water Dunrail hearings and deliberations. Nothing heard on those. And finally, the council extraordinary meeting, public minutes on the 30th of June, which was the final long-term plan adoption meeting. Councillor Sampson.
Page 24, item 4, that we adopt the fees and charges schedule. While we adopted the fees and charges, the actual literature and charges that have come out are different to what was adopted. And it could be argued that what we adopted was what we agreed to, but the charges that are being charged at the Karamea dump are different from what was agreed to.
So I know you've discussed that with staff. Have we got some explanation on what we can do about that?
Yes.
So I don't think it's a matter that the minutes are incorrect, because that is what we did, and we did adopt them. The issue has been that what we adopted hasn't been what's gone out to the public comms, because that's kind of the angle, isn't it?
Well, I see it that we adopted them and they should be the charges.
Yes.
So if the charges are different, well, which is correct? The charges
So
or
we
the
either need to
adoption?
correct the minutes or correct the charges. Yeah. And Mr. Blom.
Through the chair, thank you. So, and thank you, councillor, for bringing this to our attention earlier today. Some of the outcome of this, of the change, is the consequence of the general increase that the smart environmental contract, they are smarter entitled to adjust their fees at this particular time of the year. And part of that then impacts the cost of disposal at Karamea, because the waste, etc., or some of the waste from Karamea comes to Westport to be consolidated and disposed of. So there's an impact. Council has also identified another aspect of it just prior to the meeting that I haven't investigated yet, but I will get back to council on those issues.
Councillor Sampson.
Through the chair, what I am talking about is we never discussed the charge for paper, cardboard and glass, which is a refuge charge. And neither of those come to Westport. So, and Smart Environmental don't have any handling of that whatsoever. And I'm concerned because people are up in arms. The fact it's going to be charged as refuge. We've got a weighbridge there and it's going to be weighed when the glass goes over the weighbridge. And if people choose not to do that, take it to the dump, which has been said already, we're going to have litter and broken glass where we don't want it. So we agreed to one thing and then something else comes out and it's got nothing at all to do with Smart Environmental.
And as I mentioned, I need to investigate that particular aspect and check why that's come out like that. Okay. And I will get back to council on that.
So I suggest we just leave those minutes off and we revisit them next month and that be picked up offline and sorted out. And then so everyone's comfortable next month to confirm the minutes. Everyone agreement with that one, so we'll just, yeah, we'll leave that, we'll leave the minutes from the final plan adoption. We'll leave those on the table and revisit next month once you've had the dialogue offline, because need to sort that out. Okay, so there was nothing suggested to change in the minutes of the 25th of June or the minutes of the 30th of June, so I'll move those as true and correct. Through a seconder, Councillor Weston. Anything further on that? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously, thank you. And just make sure there's a note there that those ones will need to carry through. The final bullet point. Okay, action points, agenda item 4. And let me just bring those up. So there's been an action point added, which was that dropped out of the long-term plan, which is the public toilet plan to come back to council in September. In this week, there's been a little bit of development that I want to add and get your endorsement to add to the action point list in relation to the Karamea SPR. And so the team have had a number of visits, or a visit this week from NZTA, and at officials level, they were indicating that there is no sign of any change in the government's position on the SPR, which is what we knew, and that at the moment there's no pathway beyond 2027 to see that do anything other than some kind of reversion to local road or whatever. So they indicated that the way to resolve that is literally a political advocacy position. The rules for them that they are required to administer are very clear. That is the pathway at the moment. In 2027 there'll be a change to the SPR. So I suggest we put it now, we've got a couple of years. I think now we put it on the action point list and we have staff member will be assigned to it, and we'll have, my plan is to refresh the sort of economic impact side of that road on rates and on the Karamea community. If the road's out of action for any length of time, that sort of thing, get that sort of business casey stuff back together. And then we can start advocating probably with the new council, but put it on the action point list now, so it's not so Councillor Sampson.
Sorry, I had to hear that, but it's inevitable. So therefore, the Logan approach will be part of that, because there's been last water meeting where we're looking at redeeming it, and I'm sort of opposed to redeeming it with what I know about, or what I have seen about the engineering report that I was kindly given. So will we be able to work on that in the meantime? Because I'd hope to see that deck be replaced on the 94-year-old bridge. That might give us another 40 years, which is sort of pretty worrying to anybody in the district, because become aware that the bridge is going to be redecked rather than replaced, because with our negotiations earlier, that was a negotiating factor, that that bridge was going to be replaced. And at our last risk and audit meeting, it fell off. And I don't want us to be redecking a bridge, and just as you say, in 27, we'll be possibly taking over something that's just had a band-aid on.
Yep.
Which will be significant cost to the ratepayers if it becomes a local road.
So I might look to the team, but I think I do see these as, although related, because you were right, that was part of the negotiation whenever it was last 5 years ago when they were still talking about that. So just to point out, there's been no change in the position. It's just the staff, our staff have discussed it, and the staff have indicated that there's been no change, and that's still the pathway in terms of the SPR. So Anthony, have you got any comment to add on the Little Wanganui Bridge?
For the Little Wanganui Bridge, through the chair, thank you. I suppose in terms of background, there was an initial assessment done a while ago, which determined that that bridge should be replaced. On further detailed engineering investigations, they've identified that there was a special phrase which I can't quite remember, but effectively the net present value life of the bridge under the national way of assessing structures like that, it is better to do a degree of maintenance on it, and it's quite significant maintenance. I'm very conscious of Councillor Rosalie and the Karamea residents' concern about the bridge. The engineers are confident that the main structural components of that bridge, in particular the piers, are oversized for what it would need to be. So the main risk around it being washed out isn't, from what I understand from the engineering, isn't such an issue. We will go back and reassess that. We've had WSP who did the report reaffirm the engineering basis of that. We'll have another look at that. Councillor Rosalie's come up with a local project manager who has some experience in these things with questions we've responded to, but that's a live question. I think in terms of the impact of Little Wanganui Bridge on the SPR conversation, I think perversely that could work in our favour by going, if you're going to leave us with an old, I'm not going to say it's an old crappy bridge, it's because it's maintainable. That might actually work in our favour to go, the SPR should be left up at the higher rate, but who knows? Just as another thing, the SPR is at the same time frame, the review for the overall FAR, which is the funding allocation rate, would also be up for renegotiation as well. So that's a wider question.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like that's, I definitely want to put the SPR on the action point list, and I think those points around the bridge have been picked up by the team. You're working on those answers to the questions. I think I've seen those from Councillor Sampson's engineering advisor as to what, some clarity on those.
Yes, I can share those wider if you wish.
Yep, that'd be good. Councillor Sampson.
So in the meantime, we've got it under our capital projects that the bridge is going to be redecked. Do we put that on hold for a year or so? Because once we spend at the start now saying $870,000, well, I think we'll be fairly sure that it will probably reach $1 million for other work they find they need to do in the meantime on it. For the sake, because once we've got a new deck on it, if the undercarriage isn't going to be great, it just concerns me. So where are we if we're partway down the track of redecking the bridge? Because I don't think we should do one before we have followed through pretty well and have another peer review, because this report, which has got a number of assumptions in, was done in 21, saying that the bridge should be replaced in 5 years, and this desktop one, just one pager, that actually sort of says failure of the deck elements resulting in closure of the structure at short notice and severance of the highway will lead to excessive detours. Well, most of us here know that a detour would They're very, very difficult.
So,
So that to me devalues the credibility of the specific report.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that what you just told me was that you have gone back to WSP off the back of this inquiry to get them to reconfirm and that they're satisfied the engineering is sound.
That's correct, yes. However, in terms of the timing, which has just been raised as an option, is not something I can answer now. We'd have to look at that. I just comment that there is more than just that one-page spreadsheet that's been shown. There is a report behind that, which confirms what the work that needs to be done, and it includes some structural improvements as well underneath the bridge. So it's not just the deck, there's other works as well. But we can come back with a further report. The risk of delay is something that we'd have to look at as to whether or not we should delay that or not, because I wouldn't want to hold that off if it was urgently needed.
Because I don't think there'll be no resolution of the SPR thing for a couple of years. If that, we might end up just in some prolonged battle for that one. I don't know. That's what worries me, is that you wait and then actually, because the SPR has actually been hanging around as a thing for the whole time I've been around on council. So, you might be waiting for a long time. Meanwhile, you've actually got a bridge that's
But it was
deteriorating.
spent close to $1 million on it, and 94 years of age isn't, well, it is what one would say a pretty old bridge.
Yeah. Councillor Fowler?
That was my question really, isn't this SPR an issue that comes up every 3 years? We have to keep pushing and pushing. Doesn't sound like we're going to get a resolution that it's going to be an SPR for the next 20 years and that will have any assurity. So, we could be in the same position in 3 years' time, holding off on the work. We think, why don't we wait till we've got confirmation of the SPR, and then it keeps happening, because we're never going to have assurance for the next 50 years, are we?
Potentially not, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
What I would like to see is a in-depth peer review, because that last engineering report was 3 years ago. And as I say desktop, but the last one, the report was 5 years ago, and a lot happens in 5 years.
okay. So I think we need to, we kind of need to bring this to a close somehow. So I think the team have heard the feedback, and that we need to be sure that the rigor is around that engineering. And I guess if there's any change required to the work plan, then that will come back to council.
Yes, through the chair, yes, we can do that. We can look at we can review the engineering, and we'll get back to council possibly. I'd like to commit next month, but we'll say 2 months with an answer.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, and I'd like to add an additional action point around the SPR, and I think let's put our reporting back on that one after the election, because nothing's going to happen on it between now and October, but so that the new council in November at least get brought up to speed about the SPR and the importance of it to Karamea and our district. And yeah, just so that it keeps, and that'll most likely just keep getting pushed out for a bit until we formulate a advocacy plan around that. So if we can put a date of late November, and it's the Karamea SPR advocacy. How else do I describe it? Advocacy plan post 2027. Pre-2027. I move that way. Is there a seconder? Oh, sorry, Councillor Reid.
It's a Punakaiki campground ongoing. Of course, it has been ongoing quite some time. In fact, since February 24. There's a date down here, 27 November 25, and that's when the lease is up for renewal. But I don't know why staff did not report yesterday what element of ratepayer money has been invested into the campground, both capital and OPEX. I don't know why we're pushing that so far to 25. But as I say, also there's the AMP, the asset management plan, is due for completion 30th of last month. Haven't had an update. Has it been completed? If it has been, why isn't it on here? If it hasn't been completed, why not? So there's that. The other one I'd like to see, and I've been remiss in doing this myself, quite often questions asked, and I'm hearing, I'll get back to you. It's not recorded in the minutes, so therefore we're relying upon the person who's asked the question and the staff member to get back. I'm still waiting on some questions. Okay. So what I'd like to start seeing on here is when we get the comment about we'll get back to you, because it's not recorded in the minutes, as I say, I'd like to put it on the action point so that we have something we can follow up on in future meetings, please. That's what I'd like to say.
Okay. So we'll deal with the Punakaiki questions. Can anyone give us an update on Councillor Reedy's questions? The asset management plan was due for completion 30 June.
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, Colin, I believe Douglas Marshall was doing the review of the Punakaiki and what the options were for renewal of lease or disposal. I think there was a review of the actual. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mr. Newman.
Through the chair, no, that's not correct. We've engaged an independent asset manager, property advisor to complete the asset management plan. We received it 3 or 4 days ago, and we're just working it's a draft report. We're just working our way through some of the recommendations, and there's a little bit more work to do on it. When it's ready, we'll bring it, as we've promised, we will bring it back to the council.
Thank you. In terms, so all that other stuff will come in that as well. So the time, you're comfortable with the time frame around, because it looks like it coincides with the rent review on the lease or something, by the look of it. So you're comfortable with the time, because Councillor Reedy asked about ratepayer money being invested, so that's all going to be included in this report, 27 November.
Yes, through the chair, correct. Yes, it can be.
Okay, thank you. So your further question around the various questions councillors asked at the table for things to come back. So what goes on this action point list is what council resolves to go on it. So and that's why I floated the one I'll just have around the SPR, because that information has sort of come to more to the fore this recently. I think it needs to be on there, and I'll seek the support of council to put it on there. Individual councillor questions. It's a bit harder, isn't it? Because some of them are of more interest to a specific councillor than others. So I guess I'm open to how people see that working. If you want to put something forward, it should be captured in the action point list, and council supports that, and we add it to the action point list. You know what I'm saying? Am I explaining it very well? Councillor Reedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Reedy. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yep. So someone has to make a decision. I've recommended the action point list so that we've got an ongoing record of what is outstanding in terms of questions.
Yep.
But I understand what you're saying in terms of that. The other one, of course, is, well, why aren't they included in the minutes, so that we've got something to follow up on? But of course, the minutes are yesterday, not tomorrow. So we're wanting to get to be proactive rather than reactive in this issue, in this area.
Yep.
But I've also got a question on the November 25 still, but if we can just finish up on.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at is, if there's a theme to the questions and we can bundle it into something that makes it an action point we can create, and there's support for that, and put it on the action point list. But if it's an individual email from a councillor for more information on something, then that should be just answered as per staff, I think. I mean, otherwise there could be 10 things on there. So I guess what I'm asking you is, is there a theme to the emails you've not had answered that we can collapse into a line that, or a line or two that, that you're wanting the answers on, and then see if the table will agree and want to put it on the action point list or not. So if there
Correct.
is,
So if we have agreement as to how we're going to manage that, I'm happy just for it to be, Mr. Mayor, on the action point, or a subset of the action point if you want to refer it to in that particular manner. It's it depends on the table. If people are happy that ask the question and just wait for a response, that's fine.
yeah, my question, so I'm not, I'm agreeing with you with the process.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking is what is there a thing you're suggesting should be on there, or are we just talking about process?
Oh.
Is there something outstanding that you think we need?
Oh no, well at the moment there's the question that Rosalie's asked about the minutes, for example, and I'm going to get back to you on that. And I appreciate that, you know, we're going to hold it back now, the minutes, but
so that'll be done.
there are other questions such as that I will get back to you. We'll get back to you, but we don't always get back. And it's only what I have to do to go back and check things.
Yeah. Okay.
We just need a what do you call it? Can't remember the term.
You need an EA, Colin. You need an executive assistant. Keep track of it all. Councillor Webb. I hear what you're saying.
Can I suggest, like, if you're looking at the last meeting's minutes, like it says under headings, you know, spoke to the report and answered questions, could we not just note any outstanding questions if they were relevant, that, you know, to do with that report, instead of saying answered questions? Could we not, if there are any outstanding that are coming back, could we not just note that in the minutes? And then it's there when you review the minutes at the next meeting, you've got a chance to go, if it's something that staff are going to say, we'll get back to you on. That's obviously important that people want to know, then
that's good. I guess my only caution on that, so I think that's quite a good way of doing it. The only caution is that doesn't create a re-litigation of every issue that's on the minutes, because that's not what the minutes are for. So when that's what's noted, and then it's when we're doing the minutes, it's literally a question, Councillor X, no, you had some other information, was that circulated? Yes, no. Otherwise we delve into the minutes become a re-litigation of last month's meeting by those questions. Potentially.
I would just say, like, it's a checklist that then when you're reviewing the minutes, did they all get answered? No, was that still outstanding? It's not a re-litigation about what was discussed.
Yeah. How do you feel about that working in the minute taker? Yeah, that could work. Cool. Okay, that might be a good improvement. Okay, cool.
Just one doesn't carry on, please. And November 25. I mean, for me, we're talking about on the next rent review. These are just numbers we want, which are in the general ledger at the moment. And an asset management plan, even though it was delivered 4 days ago, isn't about determining what's been invested by ratepayer versus the leaseholder. So what I want to see is not in November. I'd like to see, as of yesterday, what has been, which is as per the action point, what's happening.
Is that information that we can pull out easy enough? Yep. Okay, cool. There's your first question. So information on the financial information on the camp, camp be circulated via email. Okay, so we've got the one addition to the action point, and we've agreed on a new way forward around capturing those outstanding questions that have been asked, when answers aren't available in the room. I'll move that be that update be accepted. As a seconder, Councillor Reedy. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 5 is the Reserves Contribution Fund policy, and I will look to the team to talk us through this paper, please. Who's going to?
Through the chair, so I'll leave the bulk of this to Mr. Alderman, Ms. Little to go through it over the actual authors and understand it a lot better than I do, to be blunt. But effectively, the summary around here is, it's, as I understand it, historically, there has been a bit of a scramble most years in terms of how we distribute the funds that are in this reserve, and there has always been a need for clarity and a policy around it. I think one of the things that we've highlighted in the resolutions is, whilst we're making a recommendation, we are probably expecting some open discussion around how council want to adopt this. So we are, you know, the option 3 is specifically provided there for councillors to give further feedback and direction as and when needed. The other item, just to be clear, is this talks about how we might allocate the funds that exist. There are also questions that have been raised, and there is legislation about to come out about how the funds are collected. So the development contributions rules are being changed by the government. So we're not talking about that side of the equation. The money will come in from contributions. This talks about how we will spend that money and how it's fairly allocated. So I'll leave questions to Bronwyn and point if that's acceptable.
Do you have anything to add, or just 1 or 2 questions, or?
No, I think Bronwyn and I, when we started down this process, Tony remember quite distinctly, I'm sure, and I said, we'll work out what the rules are and maybe carve them in stone and hang them on the wall. And we looked, and actually there's very few councils. We only found one that has a policy around how they spend reserves contributions. It's financial contributions that we take only for open air and recreational purposes. So we refer it, and councillors have always traditionally referred to it as the reserves contributions fund. It's just where it sits within our accounts. But we had a really good look at how Kuiper have done it, and a lot of this paper is based on their experience. But we know this is our take on it. It's by no means a 100%. This is absolutely right, and we should just charge off down this path. We expect there is going to be tweaks before this gets across the line. Happy to answer any questions though.
And just a quick question for clarity before I go to the table. This is just an internal policy, if you like. It's not something we'd be going out to consultation on and all that sort of thing.
No, it's something we've never had to consult on in terms of spending it before. And what's happened, and the paper alludes to it, is that typically in an annual plan session, the reserves contributions fund is one of those places where councillors look to, we can, help this reserve or this committee through this fund. The challenge we have in infrastructure services, we have things come up often unexpectedly.
Tsunami on the way. Do we need to do anything? No. Strong currents. So for those online that didn't hear that, everyone with a mobile phone has just had a emergency alert from NEMA about a tsunami advisory. Strong and unusual currents and predictable surges at the shore are expected following a magnitude 8.8 earthquake near Kamchatka in Russia. Strong currents and surges can injure and drown people. There's a danger to swimmers, surfers, people fishing, and anyone near or close to the water or close to the shore. They're not suggesting people evacuate, but they're saying stay away from the water, including beaches, shore areas, harbours, marinas, rivers, and estuaries. Don't go sightseeing. And that's for all coastal areas in the North Island, Great Barrier Island, the South Island, Stewart Island, and Chatham Islands. So no need to panic, but that advisory's just been sent out to everyone, probably in the South Island. First time maybe live in a council meeting. Certainly makes you think when you get that sound. We have got Harbour Marshal in the room, and he's not rushing with the boat, so that's a good sign. Okay, are there any questions from the table? Councillor O'Keefe.
This is great. Thank you for putting the effort in and really digging into this. Personally, I feel like there's a fair bit to process and actually look at before I'm saying yes to anything on this. I would really like to see it workshopped would be good, so we could actually have the time to discuss it more. That's just my personal view. We haven't got reserve asset plans in yet. I mean, there's lots of things that we probably need to think about, digest, break down, look at, past history, things not being done correctly. There's lots of things to unpack in here, and I'm not comfortable to say, yep, pick 1, 2, or 3 on this moment, but I do appreciate that this has been done. It's been needed to be done for quite a long time, and this sort of shows this. So, yeah.
Thank you, councillor Fowler.
I sort of have read between the lines in the document, but I was wondering if maybe staff could explain the difference between reserves contribution fund and developer contribution fund, as if I was like a 5-year-old.
Yep.
A really simple explanation.
Yes, I can. Okay, so
Can you?
I can only try. You're sitting comfortably. So all councils can charge financial contributions for development. Now, those financial contributions can be charged for a variety of things and at a variety of different rates.
Through the district plan.
Through the district plan, which we know is going to be superseded by the one district plan, by the TTP, and we've also got central government saying they're going to laser cut through development contributions and make it, one rule across the country. Irrespective, all Bulletin Council has traditionally charged for is what we refer to as reserves, which is recreational and open space. And we charge anywhere between 2.5 and 75% of the subdivision value, or the end value of a section comes into council. So that's a financial contribution. There is also what's called a development contribution, which is a subset of the financial contributions, where we can say this subdivision or proposal is going to impact on our infrastructure, whether that's roading or street lighting or waste or stormwater, and we can charge anywhere between 0 and 100% of providing that infrastructure. We've hardly ever done that. But we do, and it's in the report, we do have a fund for that, which is sitting, I think, about $132,000. I couldn't see any recent transactions at all. So there are a myriad of development charges or financial charges we can levy. We only have recently, well, the most recent past, only charged for this open air recreation.
So who would decide whether we need more infrastructure in that area or not?
So
and how do you decide that?
So typically when the subdivision comes in, it goes through planning. Planning then talk to the likes of Three Water and Transport and say, someone wants to create 20 lots here or 50 lots. Are they within the serviceable distance from water or wastewater? Do they need roading? Do they need street lighting? Whatever. And they will analyse that subdivision, look at the impact it has on the existing infrastructure, and put forward a case for either a share or even up to 100% of the cost of providing that infrastructure or mitigating the impact of that development on existing infrastructure. So in Westport, that may well be, we're certainly looking at that now with increasing infill, that our wastewater systems are, particularly with the stormwater influx, struggling to cope. So we're asking for some detention and what's called low pressurized sewer, where we can detain it in the property for a while, and then when the conditions are right, release it into our systems. Yeah.
So say like with OMA, with that subdivision going out there, a planner would look at that and think, this really needs a footpath, you know, so that people can access the pub safely. So we could then recoup that through the financial
We could,
contributions.
We
if
could.
we see that that's necessary.
yes,
We don't do that.
we typically haven't.
So
And I
is
think that's been more a political decision in terms of encouraging development. For Omar in particular, it's rural, they're larger lots, they don't need wastewater, or drinking water.
yeah, thank you.
Councillor Howard online, sorry, I've been sitting on you for a little while.
Get that off, right. I've gone through this quite thoroughly and I've actually come up with 5 pages of queries, items to consider, and some alternative approaches, suggestions. So I agree with Councillor O'Keefe that we really need to workshop this. I do not want to see us go through to the draft recommendation because it would end up with, for myself, I'd be voting them out. And you don't think the staff have raised some very good points in those drafts. So I really would like to move that the agenda item be held over until we've been able to workshop the suggestions. I also believe, I suppose, but this might be a bit more in the decision making, but I believe the status quo actually allows us to carry on at the moment, because not only can we address things that are in our annual plan, long-term plan, we do still have the ability to make decisions on spending that reserves funding throughout the year. And we're still waiting for asset management plan. So there's no real urgency. I really want to see us discuss some of these options put forward and discuss alternative options that may come from other councillors. So I'd really like to see a workshop on it.
Thanks, Councillor Howard. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Someone's still on. The whole idea of these, an idea of had a quick chat with Brent and Bronwyn. I hear what Joe and Tony are saying. The when I look at that, well, I don't want to go into detail because but spreadsheet that has been provided to us, and there's a massive contribution from out the Cape Omar area. Now, there's plans for a big subdivision out there, obviously, and yet we could potentially be talking about having creating a park somewhere in a 25-kilometre radius, creating a reserve or a park or whatever you want to call it, somewhere in Westport. The whole idea of these is, when you start digging deep, is to say, okay, if you're going to have a big subdivision out at Omar or somewhere else, such as McPaddens or Elmer Road, then you would develop also some green space, some open air space, so that grandma can take the grandkids for a walk, or grandma and grandpa can go for a walk around the park. It's not about them having to drive all the way into town and go for a walk or whatever. The whole idea of these reserve contributions is to, hopefully, if it's large enough, if the area is large enough, is to have these developments built as part and parcel of the subdivision. Now, we're talking at the moment about halls and the like, and re-roofing a hall and stuff like that. That's all very well and good. But what is the purpose? What was the purpose of charging, for example, the person up in Elmer Road and also the developer out at Omar? Why was it charged? Okay, it was charged so we could develop open air space around those areas. Now, I don't have an issue with us spending some of it elsewhere, even up in Karamea. The legislation and the LGA allows us to do that. But what I'm saying is that this sort of thing here should be part and parcel of our planning. And back in the day, we used to have town planners. We don't seem to have those anymore. So we should be planning. We don't have town planners. I'm not aware of, there used to be a whole department at one stage.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, that's fine.
We have a planning team.
In that case, when someone puts in a request for consent, that I would have expected someone to be developing. Is there a need for a park or reserve around this area? If yes, what's it going to cost us? And that $400,000 that's sitting in there as part of 1.6 million, but it should be used in that area. not for repairing a hall up in Mocha or anything like that. However, I am aware of the fact that it is to be used for parks and recreations and the like. And as I say, it can be a 25-kilometre radius, fine. You can actually, as I said before, the LGA says you can have it anywhere, even out of district if you have to. But we're looking at internally here.
Yeah.
But at the moment, percentages, no way. What if it's 32%? As I mentioned to Brendan Bromman, we're talking about a 30% or 90% or whatever.
Yeah.
But where does it stop?
Yeah.
So, and also, if I might just comment, it's in the paper tonight about 1.6 million sitting in the bank account. There's a comment in here also that BDT cash reserves will be affected by the likely increase in spending. Well, I've already said that we have no working capital here and so on and so forth. So we don't have this 1.6 million sitting in the bank for if you like, for cash flows and what have you. It's there for a specific purpose. Joe Bloggs has paid for that, and it should be used appropriately.
Yeah.
We don't actually have a plan.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go to Councillor Naylon first. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A little bit of experience with this, having sat around the table when it was introduced with the district plan, and obviously through all the consents I've done. So basically what it is when somebody has a big subdivision like Omau, then often they volunteer some of that land to be a recreational reserve. That's part of the consent, if you like. So what this is doing is saying that when you have a subdivision, you generally get an increase in population, and that increased population puts more pressure on reserves, either new reserves or existing reserves, and all the things that go with reserves like playgrounds, halls, etc., etc. So what we tried to capture in the original plan was saying, if you have a subdivision, all we're going to take under this reserves part of the contribution is a certain percentage of the land value of the subdivision, and that's set, and we get that. The development contribution is a different contribution, and what we've said is we're only going to take a development contribution for activities that are over $500,000. So we haven't had many of them, and that's why we've only collected a small amount of money. But what we're also able to do under the district plan is, if you look at Morris Road or Powerhouse Road, and you've got a rural block there, and somebody decides to subdivide, and they're at the beginning of the road or near the beginning of the road, and it's a metal road, what we've generally done in the past is approve that subdivision, and then somebody further down the road wants to subdivide. And as you get more and more subdivisions down a gravel road, the pressure comes on to seal the road because there's too much dust, because there's so many properties out there now, and a lot of them are collecting their water off their roof, etc. So what we're able to do is say right from the get-go in the first subdivision that eventually we believe that we're going to sometime in the future seal that road. So we're able to ask for a contribution from the developer to go towards sealing that road. It may not happen for 10 years, and it may not happen ever. And I guess there's probably a case for developers, if it never happened, to get their contribution for the sealing of the road back. But so that's what it does. It's based on subdivisions cause increases in population, populations cause increase in or put more pressure on existing or facilities that aren't there yet, and that's what the money's set aside for. What we used to do was, as things came up during the year, the council used to deal with them on an ad hoc basis. What we decided in one of the councils was, is that fair? Because, if you get in first in, first served, then things that came later in the year often missed out. So what we decided was to consolidate them all in the annual plan time, so that all the projects had to be in. And if you missed out in that annual plan, you had to wait for the next annual plan, just to try and make it a bit fairer, because there was a big call on fund. And that's why it went to annual plan and not the previous ad hoc thing. So this is just not about how we collect it. This is about how we spend it. Are we going to carry on, putting projects forward at the annual plan? So it's not first in, first served, or are we going to have it? So as Mr. Oldham talked, things come up during the year. The staff want to get it done. The community wants it done, but they can't do it because they're handicapped by, having to wait for the next annual plan. So workshop it if you want, but it's pretty basic. If you read the current district plan, section 8 sets it all out about all the things that we could ask for a contribution for, but generally all we're asking is a certain percentage of the land value of the subdivision. Because when it comes to waterways in a subdivision, there's a thing called there's a reserve that has to be set aside, Esplanade Reserve. So the developer has to set that land aside, so that you've got a walkway beside a river or a creek or a lake or whatever. And that's their contribution, if you like, to the green spaces, the new reserves. But yeah, normally, the planning staff, if the developer isn't offering a reserve in their big subdivision, the planning staff would say, well, it might be better if you do, and you might have a better chance of getting your consent.
Graham, having looked at this draft policy, are you kind of comfortable that kind of is worthy, or do you think we need to do a lot more work on it? What's your view?
Yeah, well, it's all we're talking about is how we allocate the money, really. We're not talking about how we get the money, because that's already enshrined in the district plan, and it'll be enshrined in the new TTPP. And so we're talking about, are we going to do it once a year? Are we going to do it on an ad hoc basis? Are we going to do it twice a year? That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that is as simple as that. I think the other thing, before I come to you, Councillor Grafton, is I think, well, unless I'm wrong, there's nothing new here. This isn't new money we've kind of found. This is that fund that's always been here, and it's been allocated a different way. And every time we come to this discussion, it's always unclear what we're allowed to use it for. There seems to be this ongoing confusion. And so this is literally just about tidying up really clearly that someone's got a policy to lean on and say, this is how we actually allocate that funding. It's not new money. It clearly has an impact on council's bottom line. If it's no longer in the bank, it is in the bank, and that's represented in our term deposits, my understanding. And so faster we spend that, then that does have an impact on council's cash flow and rates and things like that. So and I think that's why the policy here talks a bit about not spending any more than X amount in any given year and keeping a minimum balance and things like that. So, Councillor Grafton.
It sounds so simple when Graham's speaking about it, but as Joe and Tony said, I mean, if we can't, I don't think we're going to agree today on exactly the distances on spending it. And that I think there's a bit more to it than what we're going to get today. And we could sit here for the next hour or two, everyone could have their opinion, and I don't think there's going to be too much agreement on it. So I think it needs a bit more time. So I'd be happy for it to go to workshop.
Yep. I'm happy with that if that's what the table wants to do. I think it's probably possibly unrealistic that will happen this side of the election, but I don't know, depending on how busy we are.
We've got one booked in, but I think.
But okay, we can leave it up to Councillor Sampson.
I'm of the view with Graham, and I suppose being around long enough, we have better understanding that it's just a matter of how often and how you spend it, and everything else is already in place. But for the sake of the new councillors that haven't had some of the understanding how it came about and how the spending's gone, I'd be happy to go to a workshop that could turn around and make a decision now. But some people may not like the decision. But maybe
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so it looks like there's a placeholder in the calendars now for RAC for the day of the next RAC meeting, which is the 13th of August. So that would be populated with this to workshop so everyone understands it better, and they would come to a subsequent meeting after that. Pardon? Yes.
Yeah.
So in August,
That's what.
if that's what people want. Councillor, okay.
Even if it did go after the elections, it's a good process for any new councillors to understand. Not only that, even staff didn't understand how to spend it or when to spend it. It's like, honestly, everyone's been banging this around for the last ever since I've come on board, and I just need the space and time to really unpack it. I mean, it's okay for Graham and Rosalie. Like Rosalie said, they've had experience, they understand these things through processes, which is great, but I just think we should discuss it. That's my opinion.
Okay, so someone before said they want to move to leave it on the table. Councillor Howard, is there a second to leave this matter lie on the table? I think that's how we have to do this. Councillor Grafton seconded. Yeah, open that for discussion. Briefly, hopefully. Councillor Reid.
So here, did we have an agreement about the a workshop before the RAC committee? Have we?
Well, we're voting on leaving it on the table. There'll be a subsequent workshop.
So what I'd like to see, I mentioned before about town planning. If we're going to do a workshop, a prime example at the moment is the proposed subdivision out at Omau, where they have paid considerable amount of money, and I would expect to see already a proposal for open air space. When someone pays the sort of money that they've done, for me, I hear what Graham's saying, but if we're going to build or have a subdivision development out there, surely we have got provision in there for open air space. Yes or no? In which case, that's a good example for us to be discussing this at the workshop.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Just on that one, Mr. Mayor, if we're talking about the 21 lot subdivision out there, they're lifestyle blocks, and they're very, very big blocks and very, very small building footprints. So virtually, you've got your own recreation space in your own backyard, and the combination of 21 lots of backyards makes for a huge recreation, huge green space where no buildings are allowed. There has to be certain plantings. There's a walkway going along the cliff top edge, which is, will be open to the public. So that's the reason why there's not why the developer didn't have to come up with a separate reserve, if you like, a green space, because there's awful lot of green space in that 21 lot subdivision.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Naylon. I think there's nuances and differences with every one of these because they're all treated as individual applications and they have different terms and conditions that attach as they go through that process. Okay, so there's been moved and seconded that the matter is left on the table for a subsequent workshop, and it'll come back to council at some time in the future. All those in favour of that approach? Those against? Okay, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we won't confirm that date, but the team will have a look and see what works best for a workshop on that matter. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 6, which is the senior housing future management discussion. And I will look to Ms. Trigg to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Richard. Just want to thank everyone involved in the Senior Housing Working Group that was formed in 2020. The work started with this council prior to the triennium, just to look at the different options, and ultimately it was kept in this LTP that we've just adopted. What we've looked at recently within the working group is to how we can make this more sustainable. Currently, the way that the senior housing portfolio is, it's subsidised by the ratepayer. So what we wanted to do was to see how we could relieve the burden for the other ratepayers to make it fairer for everyone. We are aware that the impact of this paper and subsequent letters that went out to our senior tenants may have been unsettling for them. So we did do face-to-face visits, and we'll also let them know of the outcome tomorrow, however council decides to resolve today. But we are aware that it would have been unsettling for some of our tenants. What I did just want to point out also is there was an error on the market rent spreadsheet. So councillors have today had a updated version circulated, and we'll get one updated online also. There was just a few formulas that didn't pull through, so apologies for that. There is also a change that I'd just like to clarify. So we talk about currently, we've got the current market, we talk about the market rentals. For most of our market rentals, for the units that we've got at the moment, they would likely fetch between 350 and 450 if we put them through a commercial lens. What we've put in the market rental spreadsheet that you've got in front of you is based on between 250 and 350 per week, depending on what type of house they're in. So market rental perhaps was not quite the right word. It maybe should be something like a fairer rental property or something to cover the costs of providing the service. So just wanted to clarify that point. So should there be a need to change a resolution in the paper after the discussion today? I've got some ideas how we could do that. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, let's do with questions first, councillors, and then we'll see where we go in terms of debate or resolutions. Questions on the paper, councillor Fowler.
My first question is, just to make it clear for the public, I guess, Chrissy, what would the difference be for someone now versus what the fair rental will be, say, next year? What's the price difference if they are eligible for that accommodation supplement and they're not eligible?
So currently the market rentals are between $165 and $215 a week. We would be looking at increasing the rent to around the $250 per week. The maximum rental, the accommodation supplement, is up to $70 a week. When staff have spoken to Ministry of Social Development, who have been extremely helpful through this process, they said that most people who qualify will get that 70. But they also said that there's other supplements out there and other financial help that could be available to people that they don't even know about. So once we're able to have those conversations with people and potentially having those conversations with MSD with us as well, it might be that there's other things available to the seniors that they didn't know about.
Okay, so just for clarity, if you were in a single unit at the moment paying $165 a week, and that was increased to $250 a week, but you were eligible for the $70 a week accommodation supplement, you're paying an extra $15 a week.
Correct.
Okay. And then the second question was, when we've previously talked about this housing portfolio, we've talked about putting it into a trust so that people can be eligible for the supplements and that kind of thing. Is there any reason why someone in a single unit at the moment isn't eligible for that money? Or someone could at the moment be paying $165 a week, but have the $70 allowance. So it's actually costing them, to calculate that. They actually could be paying $95 a week at the moment.
The short answer is no. So they could apply, but they wouldn't get their supplement back.
That's an MSD rule, I think. Okay. So it's only under the new fair rental price that they would be eligible for the accommodation supplement.
Yes, there's a teeter point. It needs to be it needs to be a high enough rental for them to be eligible for the supplement, which is why we're able to look at it now.
And if someone's not eligible for the accommodation supplement and the rent goes to a market rent, they're paying an extra $85 a week. Thank you.
That's correct, councillor.
That's good clarity. Thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Well, you sort of base that on a rental of $250, but we're saying the fairer rental would be $250 to $350. So in actual fact, with the maximum allowed would be $70. So rather than $15 out of pocket, those people where the rent went up to $350 would be $115
Um,
out of pocket with subsidy.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. And that's where the other supplements come involved with that the Ministry of Social Development was talking about. The only ones we were looking at for the 350 were the newer Queen Street properties that were a lot larger. And we'd be quite happy to be negotiable on that as to make it easier for the tenants. But again, we want to make it fair and equitable across all the ratepayers as well. So we'd be happy to work with those Queen Street tenants to make sure that we weren't putting them in a bad financial position.
Councillor Grafton.
So it's obviously not, following on from Rosalie there, it's not the $160 ones that are going to go to 350. So it's not that.
That's correct. So
It's not that big gap.
that's correct. We used to have single units and double units, but the double units have all gone now. So they weren't 2 bedrooms, they were just a slightly larger 1-bedroom unit. So all of the units that we have now are 1-bedroom units apart from the Queen Street houses. So it's only the Queen Street houses that we're looking at putting up to 350. Should council decide that today, and again, that could be negotiable and it could be increased over a few years if that made it better for them.
Councillor Howard.
You talked about, you had a suggestion of amending 5B as in the resolution there. You mentioned one thing about changing the market rate because that doesn't really reflect what you are wanting to achieve. So could you actually explain what the outcomes you want to achieve by that proposal is and setting the rates? For example, are you wanting to make it more sustainable? Are you wanting to cover maintenance and operating costs? What's the outcome you're wanting to achieve by resolution 5B?
Thank you, councillor. I've given it some thought, and without making it too wordy, it would be increase the rental charges to fair rental cost to cover expenses incurred in providing the service. And then we can tack on the last bit around the annual plan process. So it's about covering the cost of providing the service, rather than you moving to, as we've said earlier, market rent, which would be a lot higher than what we're proposing.
So I think in a nutshell, what we're really talking about here is how much general ratepayer subsidy we're all comfortable with funding the elderly housing service that council currently has. And the report sets out a number there, 200 and something thousand is the shortfall at the moment, which is being sucked up by everybody in the district. And so this is seeking to move to a regime where effectively the units pay their own, cover their own costs to a much greater extent than they do now. And that is somewhere slightly less than probably what a true market rate, if you were just to go out and stick an ad in the paper and fill it with whoever, would be somewhere between where they are now and that is what the actual cost of those units are. Did I see your hand up, Councillor Webb, or not? Yep.
Just a question about those. Is it the Queen Street houses? Are they the newer one? When we decided to sell the other units and that, were they in the previous tenants? Were they in like a 165 unit and then they've upgraded? So thinking about that, like obviously negotiating with those tenants that they wanted to move in those into it, they've now consequently gone into a bigger unit. So therefore now they're going to fall into that category of, instead of being a 250, they're going to be a 350 by kind of no fault of their own because they were,
Yeah, it's a good point, councillor. That's why we're negotiable as to what that rent would look like. We've put a rent freeze in initially from when we moved them over, so they were not disadvantaged by moving to a bigger unit, so to speak. So where we've discussed it, more than happy to have the negotiation discussion, but just wanting to keep it fair for other tenants as well. So potentially we wouldn't be putting them up to 350 in the first financial year. It was just just an idea, a starting point for the discussion today.
just under on page, 68, under the management options, just wondered, is that a mistake under point 23, the disadvantages? So is a disadvantage of it's keeping the status quo, is it continued low cost to council in terms of time and resources? Is that a disadvantage?
Yes, potentially a mistake there. Thank you for bringing that up, councillor. The time involved with our team doing it, we discussed when we were writing the paper, and it's not a huge time, but sometimes we go out there to do something to help a tenant. Sometimes it's a few other things that we need to help them with as well. And that's just part and parcel of the service that's being provided at the moment. A management company might not take quite as much time with them as we do.
Just, can I ask a question around, because I think councillor, we've raised a good point around those people that moved from our old units. How many of them are the same people that are still in Queen Street or have, because I understand that I thought at least one has moved on?
3.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Thank you. Councillor.
Oh, sorry.
Just in regards to the managing it ourselves or letting a property management company do it, I mean, there's not a huge cost difference really. I was just wondering, like, how much is it worth that the property manager is up with the latest legislation? They know that they take the liability if you know, like there's a dispute or there's some sort of disagreement in terms of the tenancy tribunal and that kind of thing. Does that would come at some sort of benefit and reduce the liability of council if we were to outsource that?
Thank you for the question, councillor. Absolutely. However, to date, there's been very minimal incidences of that. So we haven't spent too much time on that sort of thing anyway. We've got a tenancy agreement in-house that gets checked to make sure that it's up to date with everything that gets sent out with any new tenancies, and they get reviewed and rent reviewed as it goes. So if there was a big dispute like that, absolutely would save a lot of staff time with the additional cost.
So do we have someone in the property team that's keeping up with the latest legislation of what's required and what services to provide to tenants?
Yeah, we get alerts come through when there's any changes, just so we're over the top of it.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Nallon? Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of you know, what we were trying to achieve here. Originally, when we had these units, there was an asset testing, and you couldn't come into the unit if you had, you know, assets in cash or whatever more than $6,000, I think, when I first started on council. So there's a little bit of a fishhook in terms of the accommodation subsidy in terms of those people that have got assets, because I understand we're not really asset testing people, you know, we don't have a limit at the moment. So there could be some of them that would exceed the limit in terms of assets, and therefore wouldn't qualify for the $70 a week. In terms of, you know, the general ratepayer subsidising to the tune of a couple of $100,000 a year, well, there's nearly $50,000 worth of overheads in there. So in a way, those people are paying for council overheads. And if we'd decided to devolve ourselves from these, then that would have had to be met by the it would come back in-house, if you like, and we'd have to meet, you know, rate an extra $50,000 to cover those costs. So I think we need to be mindful of that. In terms of if we then go and add another $20,000 by getting an outside company to look after them, well, you know, that's $20,000 that those people living in those houses don't need to pay, really. And we've just heard that it's a pretty minor function of the council. Things go along pretty sweet, really, and it's not too much trouble for existing staff. Because I guess the question would be, if we put it out to a property company, you know, do we lose a staff member who was doing that job? Because now they don't have to do it because we're paying $20,000 to a property company. So I'd be more in favour of keeping it in-house. Happy to get the rents up to, you know, to try and cover costs, but I think we need to be, you know, wary that there's already $50,000 of that $200,000 that's going to cover overheads. So they're not really subsidising. The general ratepayer is not really subsidising that $50,000, I don't think. So we're looking at $150,000 and do our best to, you know, over a number of years to get them so that they are breaking even. Because that's what it's about. It's about subsidised housing for elderly who, you know, have come across tough times maybe in their lives or can't, you know, look after a big property. And so as ratepayers, I think most of us would be happy to subsidise some of it. And, you know, $150,000 a year seems not too bad to me.
You? Sorry, any answer on the start?
I was just going to respond. Thank you, Councillor Naylon. When we delivered the letters last week, the main comments that we got back from the tenants were that they really like our property team. So their main concern, first of all, was that they were going to lose their the nice lads that come round and help them. That was the primary concern that they had. As I said earlier, staff will be going around to visit the tenants tomorrow just to let them know whatever the outcome is today. Just to make sure that they understand what's happened and just to hopefully ease their minds.
So just to be clear, Councillor, I will make sure I got you right. So it's keeping it in-house and effectively leaving the rents pretty much as they are. So accepting that there's that reasonable amount of cross subsidy. Is that what you?
No, I'm sort of suggesting, you know, if we're going to go to a break even over time, remembering now that you can only put the rents up once a year, that we, you know, slowly creep them up with the idea that, you know, we set a point where we are, the general ratepayer maybe is not subsidising, but I think that because they're already paying $50,000 towards our overheads, I'd be, you know, taking that off whatever that 200,000.
I'm with you now. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay. Any other Councillor Reedy? Yeah, Jana.
I think it's there. We're talking questions at the moment, aren't we? Yeah. Right. I'll wait.
Okay. Councillor Sampson.
We're talking about, increasing the rents and the fact that anybody with over 8,100 in the bank, which is very little to have in the bank. So how many people would you have any idea that are likely to fall ineligible for the subsidy?
That isn't information that we hold, Councillor. Unfortunately, we don't have any information about their income. It isn't something that we take on application. It is needs based, so it is based on who has the greatest need at the time, but we don't take their financial picture.
Okay, I think we all kind of know what this is about. Councillor Reedy, we just need to.
I will ask the question. Less than 30 days ago, we passed a long-term plan / annual plan for the 25-26 financial year, and included what we're talking about now in terms of housing. All of a sudden, we've come up with with now an agenda item discussing housing, and I've got to ask the question, why? I know in the comments here it says it was put into the long-term plan and there was no feedback as such, but I don't understand why we're discussing this now when it should have been discussed during the long-term plan process. And I just have some response on that, please.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. The working group's been working on the different objectives since 2020. We've met a few times since last year. The last meeting was in June 2020. And it had to be put in because there was no other viable option for senior housing. So it just does say in the paper, we looked at selling the assets, being able to ask for a commercial provider to come in, which all turned out to be non-viable options. Following the adoption of the LTP and with councillors' comments at the time, we are looking at other ways that we can relieve the burden on the ratepayer. This is something that the working group did say that they would like to test at council to see if we move to market style rents or leave it as is, which is why you've got it in front of you. Ideally, we would have had the paper a few months ago, but the last meeting was in June, so it's the first meeting that we could get it to.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second. I've got two things I'm dealing with. Are you dealing with that?
I'll deal with that one.
Okay. That's all that raises. That's all the question around the other places we're going to do. Okay, thank you. We'll come to that in a sec. Okay, so if we've got all the questions answered. Okay, so if anyone wants to move anything? Councillor Howard?
I'd like to move 1 through 3 and also 4A and the amended version of 5B. If perhaps Chrissy could just reread out that rewording to include the fair rates and basically words around being sustainable.
Yep, so we'll get to 5B. We will wordsmith that. So let's go 1 through 3. And 4, you said, did you?
4. And 4A.
4A. 1, 2, 3, and 4A. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Grafton. Open that for for debate, discussion. Those 4. So that's keeping it in house. It's noting the report and deciding to keep the status quo of the management to be handled by BDC staff. Been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Any against? That one's unanimous. Okay, now 5B, and Councillor Howard, you'll be the mover, but we're just going to give you the wording is that Council 5B increases the rental charge to a fair rental cost to cover expenses incurred in the provision of providing the service to be determined in the 26-27 annual plan process. Are you comfortable with that, to move that?
I am.
Mover, seconder. Councillor Fowler. So we'll debate that. So effectively, let's move it to what do you call it? No loss. The true cost of provision of that service. And that's been moved and seconded. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you. We're in the discussion stage, debate stage.
Debate, yes.
Okay. Talk about market rates and what have you. Big difference between a market rate where we are supposedly, Joe Blogg's out there, he's got investment properties, he's looking to make a profit. We're a PBE, we don't make profits. What we do want to do though is make a surplus each year so that we can pay for planned and unplanned repairs and maintenance and capex. Okay, so we need to make a surplus. Market rents is there, as far as I'm concerned, to make a profit, and we're not, as I said before, we're not about to do that. Up until recently, I've spoken with Brent. We now have an asset management plan for senior housing. I'm not aware of us having one previously. By the sound of it, this goes through almost. This goes through for the next nine or so years. He's got it planned out. This house here and the house down here, got it all planned out. I'm not happy at the moment that we go to market rates, as I said for the reasons before. Plus, I'd like to see the asset management plan, what's intended and what have you, so that we are not making a profit as such, that the surplus is then going to be applied to proposed R&M and unexpected R&M and capex. Now that's still to come, my understanding, and I'm happy to wait. At the moment, I don't believe there's a need for us to decide now that we're going to apply market rates.
So just to be clear, the resolution on the table does not apply market rates, okay?
Sorry, it doesn't?
It doesn't apply market rates. So I'll read it again because I think we might be talking across purposes.
Increases the rental charges to market rates to be determined.
No, so I read out an alternate, which Councillor Howard has asked. We talked about that through the question time. It rose that people weren't happy with 5B as written, and we wordsmithed the new option, which I read out on the moving. So the moved motion on the table, moved and seconded motion, says that we resolve the rental charge of the units, increases the rental charges to fair rental cost to cover expenses incurred in the provision of providing the service to be determined in the 26-27 annual plan process. So it's somewhere between where they are now and market rate. So it's in between. to achieve break even in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll wear my hearing aid next
Yeah,
time.
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah,
I could have stopped you early, but I thought you were heading somewhere different. with your
No, I'm
argument.
sorry, I knew you'd talk, sorry, we'll take the time, it's okay.
Okay, cool. Councillor,
So just to clarify, so in the next annual plan, we will have these figures and then that will go out for some as part of the annual plan. People will be able to comment on that and the council of the day will be able to say, yes, that's a fair price, and we'll have those asset management plans. Cool.
yes.
So there's no action, we're not saying a figure today.
No,
No,
we're moving
perfect.
towards break even.
Okay.
Seeing you've gone, just a comment regarding the annual plan, and we'll be going out for consultation. As we know, we decided to bring in such that we do not have to consult for an annual plan. And we have to make sure in that case that if we're going to follow that path, that it's something for the new council to decide upon, of course, but we can't just take it for gospel.
Yeah.
As a given that we will be going out there to consult.
So just to be clear,
just
to be clear, the decision not to consult an annual plan is not something council's decided to do. It's written into legislation. So we can determine we're not going to, but that provision to allow for that is in the Act. It's not something that we've decided to do per se. Yeah. Yeah.
You decided to follow the Act and that.
Yeah, it has been done in the past, yeah, but it's always a decision of the council of the day whether or not they want to consult or not. Yeah, and that we can't lock a future council into that, but yeah, you're right. Councillor Sampson.
Yes, while I've been in favour of increasing to a fairer rental, I now am concerned the fact that 8,100 isn't a lot for elderly to have, because so many of them have their funeral money set aside, and that 8,100 probably wouldn't cover that, and we could be sort of putting people at stress, penalising people who might have 10,000 or 12,000 if they won't qualify, and putting them in a position of having to pay more rental when they have actually got very little. Yeah, just trying to cover future costs, one would say.
Anyone else? Okay, it's been moved.
Can I give a right of reply for the?
Sorry, yes,
Yep.
sorry, councillor. Yes, final right of reply, and then we'll vote.
Okay, the comments about assets, surely we're wanting to get the most needy into these units, so perhaps somebody that's got assets is able to look alternatively or support that difference between the fair rate and but also as part of that analysis when we're setting the fees and the annual plan process, we'll be looking at, is the rate being charged sufficient that they're able to get the accommodation supplement? What is the further review of the budget and the cost? It will also be looking at, depending on the rate set, how much is the ratepayer subsidising the difference? Like at the moment, I suggest $24 per ratepayer subsidies. With about 50% of our population as retirees, I suggest a lot of these people should be asking for a subsidy from council too. So there's a balance of factors we need to look at. So a fair rate has a lot of considerations, and I think that will be decided at the annual plan process. But by deciding now, it gives staff time to work through what does legislation require in setting the rentals, and to work through tenants, and to give them good understanding of what they may be facing. So I think that's probably my closing remarks.
Okay, just before you leave, Councillor, we're going to vote right now. Okay, so you might as well sit there. It's literally going to take a few seconds. All those in favour? And those against? One against. So that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Very valid points either way given there. I would like to deal with the next one because I know we've got our harbour master waiting here before we have a break. So let's just do that. Agenda item 7. Am I right? Is the delegation to Polish Council under Maritime Transport Act paper. And Bronwyn. So Bronwyn's going to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. This is a very simple paper. It's just for information only. We are going to be approaching the Regional Council to refresh the current transfer of powers that was originally undertaken in 2001. That that transfer refers to, for example, parts of the Local Government Act 1974 that have been repealed. So it would be good to get the replacement sections of the Maritime Transport Act into the document. And it's a chance to look also at the boundaries that we currently have. At the moment, it's very much the harbour and just a little bit beyond. And Dom can speak to why he would like to have more power over more sea.
Thank you,
Harbour Master Dominic Vins.
to the chair. So really, it's just about having a better alignment with how we want to oversee the navigational safety aspect of what happens in our region. So currently, as Bronwyn said, currently the road bridge and about 1.5 miles, 2 miles out up to Grenity is the area that I'm legally able to really have a legal effect. So we thought to push it out to 12 miles gives us some better control around shipping and other activities in our space, and it covers all of the fresh water in the area as well. There's jet boating and what have you, just really around navigational safety. Thought it's a good time to sort of realign. Just sort of slightly out of step with all other districts in the country. So it's a good opportunity now to pop that in there. There's nothing sinister about it.
So question from me, and it's probably one for the Harbour Master, is implications of this let's just talk about it in the Manor House scenario. When would that sort of risk to us around that, would that then bring that more into our purview in terms of responsibility than it was, or given that it's we're sitting beyond where we currently have jurisdiction, and this would likely capture it?
Yeah, possibly. I had asked them to move at the time, directed them to head offshore. The investigations are still ongoing as to what actually occurred which resulted in landing on our piece of shore. But yes, it would give me some more grunt, some more abilities to direct and move and have more control of that type of operation, thinking transshipping, for example, though that may happen within the current waters. But with the regional council not having a dedicated person or anything set up there at the moment, it sort of falls to Maritime New Zealand. So just taking some more ownership of that space.
And my second question, maybe more a policy question, is around, so the original delegation from regional council, did that have an end date, or is it indefinitely until cancelled? How does that work?
Yep, it's very much an indefinite transfer of powers. It just provides regional council has the power conferred in respect of the Westport Harbour, and they agree to transfer its powers to subject to the terms of the agreement to the district council. There's no end date. There is just as from the 29th of April 1999.
Okay. Questions, councillors? Councillor Reedy.
My understanding, we're talking about the 12 nautical miles, but also the rivers. So am I hearing that we are going to have the Buller River, for example, from the wherever it starts to the Tasman Sea, So we're also taking over the rivers as well from regional. Because what's saying on here is problems related to rivers such as oil spills cannot be dealt with even if they have a downstream effect on the harbour. Health and safety, boats on the Buller River or any other river cannot be addressed or regulated. I get the impression on this one here that and there's another one here about the river as well. We're not just talking about the talk nautical, are we talking about rivers as well, please?
Thanks, Councillor. You're through the chair. Yes, that's correct. It is picking up all the fresh water, okay, which we don't have anything other than to the bridge at the moment. Just addressing the oil spill, that is a regional council matter anywhere. So that's standard, and we assist the regional on-scene commander as to what we need to do in our space. It just allows us to have a bit more control over the navigational safety. That's really the key, is the navigational safety aspect. And that would be so up the Buller to the border with Tasman.
And so further probably to that, because I think you've raised a good point of clarity. So at the moment, you've got no jurisdiction, say, for instance, on recreational boating in the upper Buller that anyone needs to wear a life jacket or anything. Harbour Master hasn't got any, they can just take them off when they go under the Buller Bridge and do what they like.
Correct. Yeah, it only triggers from the Buller Bridge down.
Yeah. Okay, it's good clarity. So it's that kind of stuff. Councillor Farr.
The way I read this is that we are going to be increasing our area. So from that perspective, we'll be increasing our risk, I guess, because we're covering a greater area, but we're decreasing the risk by managing that water better. Is that kind of the gist of it?
It is the gist of the councillor.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so no, this is pretty much the first step in a process. And the recommendation is that the report, the West Coast Regional Council Delegation to Buller District Council on the Maritime Transport Act 1994 dated 30 July 2025 be received. And the rest of it in terms of next steps is just what's described in the report. So we're not resolving any next steps. But that is it's in the report as to what will happen, and ultimately it comes back at some future date for council to endorse or not, depending on what regional council's appetite is. So I'll move that way. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Keefe. Open that for debate. Councillor Eadie.
At the moment, we have a jurisdiction of whatever it is, Buller Bay and what have you. And the mention was talked before about transshipping. Now, that was proposed, the proposal under WMS for transshipping would take place in Buller Bay. I can't see it taking place upwards of 12 miles offshore. If that's the case, well, so be it. We have a regional council, and we all know at the moment regional councils are under the spotlight. But this is under the control of the rivers and whatever it is outside the what's been granted thus far. Why does it have to come into our control? We at the moment we have about a $6 million deficit in the port account, or maybe port and dredge account, just talking off the top of my head. But I've got no costings here. How much is it going to cost us to actually perform this function? And really, why do we actually have to perform this function? Because it was pointed out, the idea is to be able to manage risk and so on and so forth. To me, it's creating additional risk. We don't have the manpower for it, so we're going to have to bring on more staff. As I say, we can't at the moment control the port as we've got it at the moment, i.e. the jurisdiction that we've got thus far granted by regional. Why do we want to include anything more? That's all I'm saying. I'll be voting. I know it's only a recommendation, but I'm voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Any other views in debate? Councillor Grafton?
I'm just sure that, like, I think we are controlling a port. I think that is totally different to whether you're controlling a port or not. And as was just stated before, it actually gives us someone here that is overseeing things. I think that's what Dominic said, was that there's no one here that is overseeing those extra barriers. So I see it as being a good thing it lessens the risk overall, it might, yeah, whether it gives us more risk, I don't know, but it lessens the risk for everyone if there's someone here that's overseeing it.
Yeah. There's nothing further, I'll close it off. So I think it's worth looking at in the sense that, from what I would take out of the report, is that because we happen to have a harbour master who happens to have a boat, vessel, what is it, protector, we become the default responsibility anyway. So the call goes to Maritime New Zealand and they pick up the phone to us and we end up responding. And I think, personally, I think it would be better if we actually have some jurisdiction to be able to head off risk before it lands on our doorstep in the middle of the night with a phone call from Maritime New Zealand. And I think the other thing is that notion that there is no control or no ability to control things like safety and speeds or life jacket wearing or whatever on some of our rivers is I think a huge gap in our ability to keep the community safe and provide, improved best practice. So I'll be voting. That's the reason I'm in support of us exploring this further. And with that, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Are there any against? Motion's carried with one against. Thank you. I suggest we have a quick break, councillors. We've been going almost 2 hours. And so we'll come back at 5:30. I'll just adjourn till 5:30. Thanks. Rightio, welcome back. So we'll reconvene at 5:34. And the agenda item we're up to is number 8, which is the Mayor's report. And I don't think I've got anything to add to what's in that report. I'm happy to take questions, if any. Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Naylon first. Hand does up.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the local government conference, I think we gave you our support for a number of remits that went up, but then there was going to be a general discussion there about the capping of rates, which we said, well, what I said personally, that we didn't have enough information, to really make any decision. What extra information did you get at the conference, and where did you put your vote, if you like?
So what transpired at the conference was an alternative motion to what had been mooted, and I haven't got it in front of me, apologies, but it got strong support, about 80% support. We voted in favour, and the motion was watered down a lot. So from it was more along the lines of we need to understand the detail of what's proposed, and before we go nuclear on the ante. And yeah, so that gained significant support from others that were quite clearly opposed to that original motion around strong advocacy against something that we didn't really have the detail on. So that detail is not forthcoming, I mean, because that's in the government's realm. And then subsequent to that, public comment from ministers has been that they're looking at that potentially coming in like before Christmas anyway. So the whole moot around the original proposition that we went to the conference to talk about was ramping up advocacy in the new year to line up with proposed policy timelines for the central government. And then it appears as though policy is probably well advanced and potentially coming in before the new year anyway. So so basically it was actually getting alongside the officials now and understand what the detail is. And yeah, you've seen as much as I have in anything that's come out of LGNZ since. So so we supported that, and all other remits were supported as well with strong in the 80s and 90s. Yep. So Simon has just found it. Yeah, the AGM agreed with 82% in support that LGNZ should continue its existing advocacy, and that a special general meeting after the 2025 elections would decide next steps, including whether there should be a public campaign. So they backed off from, yes, we're going to do a public campaign, to let's carry on at the level we're at and revisit it with any change in that, whether a special meeting in the post the local government elections. And then, like I say, subsequent to that, it's probably likely there might already be quite a clear policy direction from government prior to that anyway. So that's where that went. Any other questions? Councillor Reddy, sorry.
Yeah, I've got 3. If I could just, in the first one though, it's more out of interest than anything else. Page 78, inward correspondence from Minister Bishop, improving information contributions to the National Infrastructure Pipeline. I found the correspondence quite interesting. If you could give us, just provide us some verbal on that, please.
Yeah, so again, that was sent to me, which I mostly passed on really for our team, but that's all about informing the government's, the Infrastructure Commission's long-run infrastructure pipeline strategy and pipeline. And so they're calling basically on information share from all the councils to provide that when requested or whatever by the Infrastructure Commission. So I understand that we've already provided some initial numbers and what for, and it's just that they must be updating it. So it's just basically they were sort of saying the better you provide, the better quality information councils provide, the more reliable and robust the infrastructure pipeline for New Zealand Inc. will be. Yep.
Thank you. One of them's only a minor one. The EY representation limit, we haven't got it. That was on page 115.
Yep.
annual reports. We've got June 24, and then it says June 25. It should actually been June 23 and 24 were the two that we haven't got yet. We haven't finished 25 yet, June 25. But that's only mine. If Stuart hasn't picked it up, I'm not losing sleep over it.
It may be, I think there's one of those you need to do for each one. So I suspect that I'll be asked to sign a letter like that when they're ready to sign off their audit on that when it happens.
Yeah, agree. Okay.
That might be, I think it'll be one for each year.
You do a representation letter each year, agree? Yeah, okay. And just the other one, item 16 on page 78, please. Just the bullet emergency management, EOC. It's been 4 years, of course, since July 21, and then of course we've got February 22. The draft Westport evacuation plan, a lot of people have been asking after that. Yeah. I certainly don't know where to go if we have tsunami now, for example. So we were talking about it, it's close to completion. Basically, we're looking at about 3 years so far, to be generous. Yeah. So how close is that for Westport people and if you like, the district?
Yeah, so very close. So that was funded as part of the Resilient Westport work. And so specifically for Westport evacuation. So that's been quite a big project, and there's been some changes of personnel contractor that was delivering that. So that's being delivered by, that's a regional council project, but obviously because it's Westport, it's happening out of our EOC. Mr. Dowler is the current contractor who's nearly finished that work, and so it's with the sort of what would you call the what do you call them, like stakeholders or responders. So it's been with police and FENS and those kind of people for their review, power companies and the like. And then once all that any late feedback comes in, it'll be finalised and socialised with the public. And there's various conversations going on around how that's best done in terms of community understanding of what the various steps in the evacuation plan are. And I've seen the draft. It talks about like trigger points and when you would start messaging this to the community and when you'd be asking the community to start moving or not, and all that sort of stuff. So having some preloaded messaging to go out so that it's quick and easy when whoever pulls that off the shelf to deal with it, whatever controller is, because you've got to remember that there's a good chance the controller will be someone who's not familiar with it and needs to be able to action it. So the feedback from those who are trained in this, the emergency service, and that is that it seemed quite comprehensive and there was a lot of satisfaction that it was hitting the mark. Tony, you were in that meeting, I think, too. Yeah. Am I capturing it well enough? So I think the next step is it will be some kind of community, I don't know if it's a consultation, but awareness raising of what it is and what it isn't and what their expectations might be.
Yeah, you pretty much did capture most of it. It really is just giving our people the tools, a clear pathway to certain levels, which is quite handy, and especially too if we could have anybody controlling the EOC. So it's just having everyone has the same information and how to actually judge it, which is great. Yes. So, but as far as comms coming out on that, yeah, they're still not quite there yet. So, yeah.
And I think just last thing on that was one of the intentions of that funding was that it creates a bit of a methodology and a blueprint that can be shared in some other really vulnerable communities on the West Coast, and that work is underway as well as to how they, again, they're unfunded, but how they develop such a plan for like Hokitika and Waiho, down the Waiho friends, Joseph and that as well, who are arguably every bit as exposed as what Westport is in terms of a need for evacuation planning. So that work's underway as well. So it's all helping benefit the West Coast emergency management space, Inc., if you like.
So that's provided me, and thanks for that. I understand where you're coming from there. But in terms of just an evacuation plan, where do I go? As you know, in 21, I think in 22, everyone went out to the Cape. settle it up, but we don't actually have, what I'm seeing at the moment, I'm hearing we're talking up at this level, but at community level, we're talking, I mean, are we looking at, you know, where do we go, be it Mokanui or Punakaiki? That's where I'm.
Yeah, so the plan does delve down. I haven't seen that level of detail, but it cascades down right down to that level. And yeah, definitely. Councillor Sampson.
Just to carry on from that, our coordinator in Karamea has resigned. So where does responsibility lie for getting another coordinator? Is it with Westport or the community?
I would liaise with Janice as the emergency management officer to help coordinate the effort to find somebody. Yeah. But I mean, ultimately the community will put someone forward. But yeah, that's how it normally works. I mean, these are volunteer organisations, and yeah, but usually that's one of Janice's the emergency management officer's role is to support those community coordinator groups. And yeah. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And the second one, just out of interest, on page 73, number 7, just the community employment carrying on to the Outward Bound Scholarship. Have we had anybody taking up on the Outward Bound Scholarship for recent times?
No.
Please.
Not through us or Tuia, because we couldn't find anybody.
Yeah.
We did for Tuia. I don't think Outward Bound is actively promoted, but it's there if people know of anyone. Yeah. There have been some from here through some other program recently. Andrew might know, I'm not sure, but Reap had some people or someone went on it, some girls from I think high school, but it wasn't through Mayor's Task Force.
Yeah. I mean, we've had about 3 girls that have gone through the program, but certainly not through Mayor's Task Force. They've actually been private applications. And they've been quite recent.
Yeah. But certainly if you have a look on Mayor's Task Force website, I think there is information there around how that works, and they can be recommended and put forward by member councils. So we can certainly do that if there's someone in mind. And I'm not sure I have to look into the details of when they do intakes and whatever, but it's there. And a membership of Mayor's Task Force is I don't know the exact figure, but it's like $500 or $600 a year, or $700 a year. It's not a lot of money to be a member of that, which is just aside. Any other questions off my report? Nope. Somebody want to move that it be received? Councillor Weston, seconder. Councillor Grafton. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. CEO's report, agenda item number 9. Mr. Pickford.
Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Reddy.
So yes, moving to it now, the regulatory report. On page, some very fine print. Apologies for that. On page 154, end of master planning update. End of July 25, the project clearly moves from resilient Westport funding streams to internal council BAU. Now, my understanding was there was going to be no cost for the ratepayer on the master planning, but we have put in the long-term plan for 125,000 or 130,000 to investigate seed funding. But this is telling me that we are going to continue the master planning as Westport, BDC ratepayer BAU. And my understanding was that's not the situation. As I said before, we were going to look for seed funding. If we can't find the seed funding, I asked the question then, if we don't find it, no one's given me an answer as to where the funding is going to come from.
Yeah, so you want to answer?
So Simon's not here, Simon Bestman's not here to answer, but my recollection of his response was that money was repurposed in the budget, so it's not new money. But this money actually is about funding a role to actually source further funding. And that's, yeah, that's my recollection as well, yeah.
So my understanding is you're right, you referred to the 120, 130,000 in the long-term plan, and that was talked about then as being the money that would be, that this, any work on resilient west, master planning would be drawn from. And that's what I'm reading this line item as meaning, is that the resilient Westport component is now complete. And that any further work is funded out of the BAU, which has been approved through the LTP at around that 130,000. And that is largely at the moment around advocacy and, you know, trying to seek co-funding and government advocacy and whatever as well, working with Palmer, all of those things. Councillor Howard.
Could I just get a bit more explanation around item number 15? It talks about restricting third-party funding for community facilities, but I assume that's just relating to development contributions. That in no way means that we can't apply for external funding applications, say through lotteries and those other ones. It's purely part of the, well, RMA is going to be gone, but it's related to those sort of third-party contributions as far as resource consents.
That's my understanding. It's there's a lot of detail in the bill that we're still unpicking, but we will look at bringing a submission back to council, and there'll be further detail. During the conference, there was a very good presentation on that on the system improvement bill, which came from Mike Wayfield at Simpson Grierson. So there'll be a lot more. This was really just a first cut, but that was my understanding, councillor, that of what's written there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The CEO report. Okay, someone like to move that be received? Councillor Fowler, seconded. Deputy Mayor Basher. He's smiling, he must be comfortable. Get you on record. Thank you. That's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of this receiving the CEO report? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, portfolio lead reports, and we can do this by exception. If you've got nothing, that's fine. Onaga Hill Community Board, Councillor Webb.
I was actually unwell and so I had to zoom in, but I'll let Councillor Naylon take over if I've missed anything. We did have the Reefton Historic Trust. We had two members, Nigel O'Malley and Dave Hawes, come talk to us about moving the Fairley engine. So we've decided to then, we've put some ads in the Clarion to seek some community input in that, and then we've deferred it to our next meeting. So once we've gathered all the information, we'll make a decision whether whether it's going to be shifted, because they're looking at setting up a working group for that. We also got an update just from the Reefton Service and Visitors Centre. So you might have seen in the media, just looking at when the merger happened, there was we went out for a consultation what it should be named, and then we decided to just go with Reefton. Is it Visitors and Service Centre? Yeah, wrong way around. And so we've just said, just because we did say to the public that we would revisit it once we'd done the merger and that. So just some ads are out there at the moment. If anybody has any suggestions, whether we keep the status quo or change the name, we're wanting to keep it as low cost, no cost. We don't want to go, spending lots of money on that rebranding and that. Also, we've got some quotes back about we've been investigating a pathway, getting access to the building there for the service centre, and looking, so we've gone back to see, looking at the automatic doors, whether that's an option, because it came out about $15,000 to try and get the footpath going around to the back automatic doors. So that's good that we are re-looking at that. Don't know if I've missed anything, Councillor Naylon. No, just yeah, next meeting. I think we've only got one more meeting before the election.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Before I open for questions, I don't think it's overtly political for me to say, last I looked, there were no nominations for the elections for ICB.
Yeah, I think
that's
just
concerning.
probably, no, I think I have, there's names bandy about, so hopefully I think people are just getting all their documents together. So hopefully by Friday there'll be at least 4.
Okay,
So,
nice.
yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Webb? Nope. Okay, moving on. Regulatory environmental planning. Councillors Lamon and Basher.
Nothing to report. Yeah.
Thank you. Community services, Councillors Howard or Farlett or Farlett.
Yep, there's just a few things to bring up. Chrissy and myself met with the Punakaiki Community Facility Committee, and it was just on how we could support them. So there was discussion on the sites that identified and the benefits or hurdles around each. There was about how to progress the project. I think they're very, very well organised committee and they're working towards some options. Stafford Street houses are leased. There's disappointing numbers at the attended the new candidates information question sessions that were optionally provided, and I think that's really disappointing because some candidates obviously could have really benefited those opportunities to ask the CEO questions. Monthly reports continue to come in from the Dolomite Point project steering group. The cycleways under work, they're heading south, and also the walking track and lookouts under development, plus the EV chargers operational. Staff are continuing to monitor and evaluate all council community services. Upcoming engagements, there's West Coast Tourism Summit on the 3rd of September. And following the next day is the Destination Management Reference Group. They're meeting on the 4th September. Heritage West Coast setting a date for the AGM. So I think that rounds it up.
Excellent report. Thank you, Councillor Howard. Any questions? What's your feeling on the paid parking concept that potted version?
I think that's going through consideration. I think they've certainly consulted well with the local community. So I guess we've just got to wait and hear back on what DOC have decided.
Yep. Right, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Grafton.
Just one, you hear all information all that about the legalities of doing it and who owns the piece of land and all that. Does any of that come into it, or is that just speculation?
Could you, is this around the piece of land that the community wanted for community facility, or what are you exactly, or who owns the Dolomite site? The car parking. The car parking.
And who owns what?
I think that's actually still on the, yeah, that's still DOC land from my understanding. It's not part of Ngāti Why I don't think. No, don't quote me on that though.
My understanding is the car park itself is DOC. The contested point is that there's previously been parking on the state highway edge, which has been largely or going to be largely removed, I understand, as part of the development. And I think that is one of the contentions that some people have around that.
Last time I went through, I noticed that they've now got the yellow lines on that parking on the blowhole side of the road. So that's already been done.
Yeah. So yeah, that I think is the contention. Okay, no other questions for Councillor Howard. Right. Corporate policy, corporate planning, Councillor Reedy. Anything to add? Cool. Rural and small. Oh, beg your pardon. Jumped the line. Infrastructure. Councillor Grafton and Weston.
Yeah, we had portfolio meeting today, and a few of them, I suppose, at Cobden Street work is well on its way. The Reefton one, I think, is just starting on its way. let us speak about the creek sometime. The one quirky thing that come out of it about the stormwater and wastewater up there is obviously only one pipe, but brief tonight was talking to infrastructure and said that in years gone by, they diverted one of the local creeks into the stormwater and wastewater system to help it flow better. So in the future, I don't think that's an easily fixed to change apparently, but one of these reasons to make things flow better, I suppose, was easily done. But and the other one was the trunk main one that seems to be going really well, and so it seems to be well within budget.
Westport front, mate.
Trunk main, yeah.
Excellent. Any questions on infrastructure? Just the only other thing to add is active conversations are underway with our fellow councils further south for local water done well, and Westland have resolved through their council to be a part of the multi-council CCO. So both technical teams and governance teams are now actively working on setting that up and finalising water service delivery plans, which will come quite late in the piece to council for, we'll see them, I think, before they get approved by the CEO to sign off and submit. Councillor O'Keefe.
How's Westland going with that?
Yeah, that resolved, yes. Yeah.
Great.
So they're on board and we'll work together on next steps for that. Okay, smaller councils, sorry, smaller rural communities. We are a small council. Anything? Corporate, there wasn't anything.
Nothing.
Only Councillor O'Keefe.
Just that most of us subcommittees are gearing up for their full annual meetings and just setting their goals for the year moving forward. Yeah. But that's about it really. How about you, Linda?
Okay, thank you. So EU relationships, that really at the moment is sitting largely at a regional level. So Ngāti Waewae, particularly for Antoa, is very active working with across councils really as part of the local water done well discussions and the broader work that we've sort of just initiated around potential for mining royalties and what that might look like if it was to come back to the West Coast and things like that. So that's operating at a higher level at the moment, really important and potentially quite exciting work. But again, working together really good across all the councils and iwi on what that might look like. So that's good work underway. TTPP. Don't know if there's been any updates. I don't think there is, Graham. There's meetings all planned for
September,
which is when we really get into the quite a big job of dealing with or considering the recommendations from the hearings panel. Joint Committee Westport Rating District, nothing to report there, I don't think.
Oh, just that there is a date set for the next meeting, which is the 29th September. So if the public have got anything they want to raise for the agenda or any queries, they could go to the community representatives or council representatives.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that reminder. And Regional Transport Committee, so nothing new to update there. Okay, if there's no further questions on that, I'll move that we receive those verbal updates. Somebody second that, please. Councillor O'Keefe. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, public excluded report, agenda item 11. Oh, we'll do public forum. So there was one public forum from Mr. Russell. Is there any feedback? Any Councillor Howard?
I think there's several points. One being he could have taken opportunity of attending the well advertised candidates meeting with the CEO. The other thing is perhaps an understanding of local government and that the council operates through the CEO. So really it's his discretion on any interactions with staff. And then just a reminder that one of the KPIs on the CEO is a really good induction process and familiarisation for the new council.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Naylor?
Yeah, this has sort of been hanging around for a while. You've all had the emails from Mr. Russell, and I think it's something that's, never been thought about before, about, what do local body candidates, what's their standing, what can and what they can't have, etc. So I think it'd be worthy if we got a hold of Mike Reid at Local Government New Zealand, because all the research I've done online is that nobody talks about it. There's no lead that you can get from it, and so Mike Reid would probably have a good handle on it. But yeah, I mean, if we are obliged to give candidates the sort of information that Mr. Russell's seeking, then I think we should do it. And we don't want to be making a mountain out of a molehill, if you like, in terms of what he's after.
Yep. Okay, I could certainly get some advice from Dr. Mike Reid to put in my response. I don't know that it. Yeah, we're not withholding anything. That's the thing. It's
just access to staff, operational staff.
Yeah, Mr. Russell's request seems to be to access operational staff, and that's the bit it's not so much the information, it's the access to the operational areas and talking to staff that are.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why I thought if we got Mike Reid's sort of the font of all knowledge.
Yeah,
he may have come across it, but we need some sort of definitive thing that says, well, that's not part of being a candidate. That sort of access, and if you look at, most of the information is available via public agendas, public meetings, which are now on tape. There's only the public excluded that's not readily available, and okay, it'll take a bit of trawling through, etc. But all that information, all those questions could well be answered by what we've already put out in terms of agendas and, especially the tapes of the meetings. So, but yeah, I think it would be good if we got some sort of definitive answer, because at the moment there's no body or authority that's saying, this can't happen. But I'd imagine that it can't happen, but we need an independent body to say that, I think.
Okay, we can look into that. I wouldn't be in support of spending any money on getting that definitive answer, but like the LGNZ thing is easy to get. It won't cost anything to ask and just see if you got. No, I think it is discretionary, and that's whether or not you want to use council resources for that. Yeah. Okay, that gives me plenty to go back with. That's fine. Thank you. Right, public excluded report, and there is how many items? 1, 2, 3, 4 public excluded items. I'm not going to read all those reasons. They're there to confirm the previous public excluded minutes, to consider a tender recommendation report, to consider delivery of local public services, and consider the draft CEO key performance indicators, and noting that they will be very public once our council have had an opportunity to discuss and determine them. I'll move that we go into public excluded for those reasons. Is there a seconder? Councillor Weston. I'll open that for discussion, if any. Okay, all those in favour of going to public excluded? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, we'll just take a quick break while we end the live stream. Thank you for anyone who is watching the public part of the